How about a little drama? So this is so dramatic. I am in a new room today, and this room is not done, but I decided I did not feel like moving everything I own in front of the tank today because I kind of have a lot of it wired up here, and eventually this room will be perfect. For now, there might be a little bit of an echo because I'm still working on it, and I know it looks really dark. But I thought, okay, so I'm going to catch you up on some stuff. I'm going to answer your questions today. I literally do not have an official topic this time because my brain didn't have room for one more thing to think of. But I am here slightly late. Oh, because I forgot to put on my watch. That's why I didn't know what time it was, and it's sitting on the charger. Last I left you, I said I was going to get some carpet installed, and I didn't get I haven't told you what's happened since. Some of you follow me on Facebook, and so you see things that way if you're closer friends. And, sometimes I share something through social media, but not much has been shared about the carpet to the world. Other than if you looked really closely at a couple of reef tank shots. So I just want to say hello to several of you, and nobody has complained about the audio, so I'm thinking that's good. Rick says, how's the carpet project coming? See? Thanks to that, I can talk about it now. So Rick, I'll send you the $5 later. Thanks for asking that question. The project was an ordeal, as you can imagine, because I own so much stuff. And I'm literally embarrassed to show before and after pictures, or before pictures, because it was that bad. But the room I'm in right now was filled to the ceiling with aquarium stuff. And it was really things for my aquarium, not the things I sold. The things I sold were in the next room over, and that whole room was packed with stuff, and all that got moved into the studio last year. And you've seen it on the shelves, and people have come over and said, I had no idea you sold so many things. And I was like, I know, it was all squirreled away in there. So this room was my dirty, dirty secret. And it was filled, like I said, to the top with packages of anything I ever bought for my aquarium, products that I had done a review on, products that I might use one day, products that I'm keeping as backups, you name it. And then there was a couple of bookcases in this corner over here that I got rid of that were super dated and just had to go. And what I ended up doing was I was so concerned about the weather. That was a huge concern because I needed to put a lot of things outside for them to do their job. And the forecast kept saying things like, it's going to rain 90% on Monday. And I was really, I was stressed. And I told them, just come anyway. We'll just keep watching the forecast. And as of Friday, it said Sunday would rain, Tuesday would rain, but Monday would be dry. I was like, okay, good, come. And then Sunday came, there was never a drop of rain, but then there was tornado warnings. And then I was watching the forecast and said, okay, tomorrow there's a chance of rain, but it's only 30%, and it should start at 5 o'clock. And I thought, okay, we're still good. I should be okay. And then I turned around and, I finally just had to commit to it. It's not like I had a lot of choices. Someone said the volume's a little bit low, and I'm sure it's because of where my microphone is located. Let's see if I can make a slight adjustment here. Maybe I can make it a little bit better. Okay, let's see what that does. It might not be better, but I'm not talking super loud in here. The room's super quiet, so I feel like I'm loud. So then I asked my son and my daughter-in-law to come please help me with my disaster of a home because I had so much stuff everywhere. And what I had to do was empty out every bookcase and every dresser and every shelf and every closet. Everything had to be emptied out so they could literally lift the furniture out. And I said, okay. And I did what I could. I packed all my little knickknacks on my desks and everything under the TV and everything behind this desk that was in the other room. And they spent the majority of their day in this horrific room. Easily 6, 7, 8 hours of work happened in this room. This room has not been empty in 23 years. It was so bad, to the ceiling. And of course the closets were packed too. So I spent, while they worked on this room and put everything into boxes and condensed it down as much as they could and got things into the garage and got things out on the porch and got things into the studio, I worked on the front bedroom, I worked on the back bedroom, I worked on my bedroom, I worked on the living room. And after a combined total of 10 hours, the three of us, which is 30 hours of labor, We got everything tracked down as much as we could, and they had to leave. And I was so appreciative for what they did for me because I couldn't have done it by myself, and it was an ordeal. Now, we found a lot of cool memories while we were doing this, and we found toys that I had bought my son probably 25 years ago. And he now gave them to my grandson to play with, which is a really cool thing. We also discovered some of my toys from when I was a kid when I lived in Switzerland. And so those were in a box, and they'll eventually be put up on a shelf where I can look at them, some kind of a curio cabinet. But it's just nice to have these things that I grew up with and that my son grew up with, and now my grandson gets to grow up with, and that was really exciting. Then I stayed up super late. You know, I was thinking, okay, let me do this, let me do that. Let me get the dishes out of the sink. Let me get the laundry done in case there's a reason I need laundry done. And I got to bed at 3:30 in the morning to fall asleep and had to be up by 8:30. So of course I woke up at 5:30, I woke up at 6:08, I woke up at 7:12, I woke up at 8:08, and then at 8:31 I jumped out of bed and I threw on some clothes and I thought they'll be here any minute. And they got here about 9 o'clock. And then they worked all day long till 7 o'clock at night. They started in the 2 end bedrooms and got those emptied out. Then they worked on the living room. Then they connected the hallway. And at that point, everything that was in boxes in this room had to move into that room back there that they'd already carpeted. But because of my careful packing by my daughter-in-law, I literally could just move things on a dolly, you know, 6 boxes high, trip after trip. And within less than 30 minutes, it was all moved over. And then they had access to this room and its closet. And then they got the master bedroom done, and then they hauled away all the trash. And I have this fantastic, luxurious carpet. I love it. I should show you a couple of pictures. Let me see if I can throw something onto my screen here, just because. All right, so it's going to take a second here. Now, just so you know, you're not going to stare at my wall behind me the whole time, but I did not get the green screen, so sorry. But let me show you. I have one picture I really like, with Jack in it, of course. Where did it go? I see Jack scratching, scratching the carpet. She was checking it out. Wow, I literally, oh, here it is. I was like, why can't I find this? So now my living room looks so much better than it did. I mean, it is literally amazing. Just looking for my finder. Throw this up here. This is the living room now. And you can see there's no desk in the back corner, which is where I've always sat for the last 10 years and looked at the TV and looked at the aquarium. And now I cannot. Now I'm in this room, and but I have this fantastic, luxurious, super thick plush carpet. I can squish my toes in it because that's what I wanted. I wanted very thick padding. I wanted very thick carpet, and I just want to be able to enjoy it. And I'm a huge, huge fan of carpet. And I know in this world, all they want is the hardwood floors. And I am the absolute opposite. I want to be comfortable. I don't want cold floors in the winter. I don't want whatever. Let's call them hot floors in the summer. I just want my carpet. And then I put, you know, tile in the kitchen and the dining and the front to the back door. There's, you know, hard floor in the studio. There's hard floor in Minion's workshop. But the rest of the house with the living space is carpeted, and it's super luxurious, and I love it. And it's in this room that I'm in right now. So I am very pleased with what they did, and, you know, I might share some more stuff later. I don't know. But I just wanted to kind of give you one little cursory look. Oh, I guess I can show you a picture of, because if you're not following me on Facebook or Instagram, you didn't see this. I did a picture from the living room. This kind of gives you a slight perspective of what it looks like to be here for currently my love seat. Oops, hang on, didn't drag. Try that one more time. There we go. So there you go. You can kind of see I've got fish on the TV and fish in Caitlin's reef and fish in the reef tank, and there's the refugium. By the way, if you look really closely in the lower right corner above the edge of the table, there is a 60-gallon glass tank. That is the new anemone cube. It has moved into the kitchen out of the back bedroom. So in the coming weeks, I'll be working on the stand get that tank up on the stand, make the canopy part that goes around that light to hide it, and get that thing plumbed into the existing reef so that it will add more water circulation to get the thing circulating. And then once it's, you know, doing well, which I don't see why it wouldn't, then at that point I can move the livestock. So that is coming. A lot of people have been asking me about this, and I'm getting there. You know, there's only so many hours in the day. I mean, I spent last night working on this room. I couldn't stand it. I had to do it. I wanted to finish it. I wanted to be completely done. I'm not done, but I'm further along than I was. And I got all the walls painted in here. The ceiling has to be painted. The baseboards have to be knocked out. And then, you know, tuck everything in where it belongs because I'm away from the wall to have room to get to the baseboard after the live stream. And yeah, I need some things that are finished in my house, just 100% done with nothing left to do. And I'm looking forward to that. So, let's see. I think that kind of catches you up on that. Let's look at the first question here. Hillbilly Reefer says, algae control, freaking bryopsis, hooking up a refugium in the hopes of outcompeting the display to eliminate it. Do you think that would work? Actually, I don't. Bryopsis is a very, very tough algae, and you can have a fully thriving refugium. You could have, you know, herbivores in the tank that are not eating it, and it will just continue to grow and live. It is the one algae that I would use aggressive means to remove it. So number one, I would rip out by hand as much as you can to get down to little nubs. I would take a turkey baster or a small power head and I would blow off the bryopsis as much as possible, like where it's on the rock, just blow water at it to get the detritus out of the base. Because what it does, it's so coarse, it traps all that sediment in the base and it uses it as fuel, as food to grow and be healthy. So if you just keep blowing it out once a week or more frequently if you want to, you're stealing it of the potential nutrients. It's its own little mini DSB. You took it away. You can lower your phosphates in the tank. That always helps to weaken algae. And then you could add lettuce nudibranchs, and you got to literally place those little fluffs of feather on top of the algae and then look for them the next day and put them back on the algae and they will eat it. A fish that eats it is the foxface, if you like that. So that is another option. If you can remove the rock from the tank, you could literally apply 3% peroxide, the kind we use for wounds, and you could put that on the bryopsis, and then you need to flush the rock with tank water, you know, with some water change water or something, just to get all the peroxide out. Then you can put it back in your reef. And another trick that some people do would be to take some 2-part putty and create a big, you know, mix it up till it's completely 1 part, and then coat the area to kind of cover it for like 3 weeks. And then one other thing that you might try, might work for you, is F-Aptasia. And you could just cover that area, you know, the area that's offending you. And that way you could burn it with the acid that is within that product, and it'll take some time too. So everything takes time. And if you have it on anything else, cleaning magnets, lock line, the teeth of the overflow box, anything that is exposed or can be removed for cleaning, clean those off to eliminate it from being in the system. So that would be my advice. But the refugium just won't outcompete it. Neither, I don't think a turf scrubber would either. M. Lazar said, what is as soon as you've used saltwater mix after mixing? My reserve was sitting at 35 ppt, and about 4 hours ago I brought it up to 35. Can I use it to do such a small water change today? You can, if you mixed it up within the last few hours, you can do it. Some people mix up salt and use it within 20 minutes. As soon as the water is clear, they go ahead and use it. Others will let it aerate for a day and then use it. Others, like me, will have it running for, have it stored for a month or longer and use it as needed. So there's lots of options, but the big 3 that you want to do is match temperature, match alkalinity or pH, either one of those 2, and then match salinity. And if those 3 match, you can change as much water as you want. I would want the water to be clear rather than cloudy. If it's still cloudy, it hasn't fully mixed yet, then I wouldn't want to use it yet. If it's cloudy, but that's just the mix you use. Then turn off all the flow to that pump, put a lid on top and let it sit for a day, and let whatever's in the water column collapse to the bottom of the barrel, and then using a pump and tubing, you could then pump it into the tank the next day without getting all that sediment into your reef. Andrea says she's team carpet. Well, I appreciate that. I'm telling you, everybody out there is against it. All right, now let me go ahead because I promised you something else here. We're going to stick this on the screen, and you need to tell me if you like it. So, let me see if I can change this. I need to know if you like that color or if you like this color. So you have to decide. It's completely up to you. You have to let me know. In the meantime, I'm gonna put it back on the 10K lighting, which is more realistic and a little bit more camera friendly. And I shot this yesterday. This is brand new footage, by the way. I did the tank, I put the camera in front of the tank and I went about my business and let it do its thing. Actually, I'll put myself way up here, I guess. If I had a green screen, I'd look a lot better in this scenario, like last week. But I do not have the green screen going, so I'm just gonna be up here. All right. Let's see. In the meantime, before you type in your questions, I'll look at the next question. Estonian Reefer says, would you consider doing private aquarium builds outside of the United States? I mean, fly in and do all the necessary bits and pieces. Yeah, if the price is covered, I would do it. I would have to arrange things over here on my end. Obviously, business has to continue, or it has to take a break. My dog has to be boarded the entire time I'm gone, so there's that. But, and then the more planning in advance, obviously, the more smoothly the actual project will go upon arrival. And that is always a challenge, that everything is there and that you don't need to go get things, you know. But yeah, it's possible. Eric says, on the topic of bryopsis, you know, that's another one. I didn't think about it. Does using fluconazole have any effect on your alkalinity consumption? Fluconazole could help with removing bryopsis. I forgot about that. I know it works with hair algae. I know it works with bubble algae. I think you use normal strength for hair algae. I believe it's double strength for bryopsis. I have not had to deal with bryopsis since the early 2000s. I remember having it in my tank in like 2005, 2006, and you know, solved the problem. And haven't had it since. But double strength fluconazole should get rid of bryopsis in the tank. And then if you use a triple strength, it can get rid of Valonia, which is the bubble algae. But Eric says, does it affect your alkalinity? I don't recall that it affects it at all. But if you're measuring it daily, at least you could kind of know for yourself. Can you let me know what you discover? Or if any of you do know, chime in this chat so I know, because that one I have not noticed. I don't tend to stare at my alkalinity super closely, but my Trident measures it every 6 hours, so I always have a number. So no matter what I've done with the tank, whatever chemical I put in, I just get an update. And it just kind of tends to stick somewhere around 9 DKH all the time. Nitrox says, I'm struggling to justify 180 something, I don't know that dollar symbol. Sorry, I don't know all the currencies. On a top-up system, when I can flick a switch on a $30 or 30 lira or whatever that is pump every day, convince me otherwise. Someone home every day. Well, I mean, look, when someone's home every day, they can top off. But if someone's not home for one day, that one day your tank won't get topped off. The automating your top off would be pretty much my #1 first accessory to add to a brand new tank. You know, once it's operational, I want to get my top off hooked up first, because all the evaporation that occurs 24 hours a day, it's just handled. I don't have to think about it. And I have been using top off systems for years, for so many years. I had a top off hooked up to my 29 gallon. I'm trying to remember what I used. I remember I bought this wrapping paper container because it was tall and it was skinny, and I could put it right next to the sofa. And I filled it about halfway, because if it went any fuller, it would drain, it would siphon into the sump, and I didn't want that. But my tank evaporated half a gallon a day, so when I put in half of that container full of water, it lasted a week. And so once a week I had to fill that container. It was so much easier than having to think about top off day after day after day. And before I had top off, I had to pour the water in manually, and that's where, as a hobbyist, I was not good. I mean, I'm way better about this, now. If I had to do it manually, I would do it. But I remember there would be days that went by and the water level would be this far down in the tank, or even so low that it was ridiculous, and I'd have to pour in 2 or 3 gallons, and you could just see the fresh water mixing with the salt and doing that oil and water scenario, and you're thinking, what will this do to my fish? What will this do to the anemone? What will this do to the livestock? It's too much at once. Plus, when I didn't top off, the salinity of that 29 gallon was of course getting higher and higher and higher, but being newer in the hobby and essentially lazy, I wasn't topping off, right? I probably wasn't keeping up with salinity anyway. I just knew it was wrong because there wasn't enough water in the tank, and as soon as I put in more water, it would take care of itself. But that is not how you run a reef. You want to run the reef properly by putting the top off water in there constantly, several times a day, to maintain the exact salinity around the clock and not give these fish a weird osmotic shock as we go from one extreme to the other extreme, just because now it's time to dump in a gallon or 2 or whatever it is into the tank. When I had a little tiny Pico tank on my kitchen counter, I had a 20-ounce bottle of RODI water next to it, and I had to top off that tank twice a day. Every single day. Got up in the morning, topped off the tank. It was time to go to bed, top off the tank. And I couldn't ignore it. Now, if you ever want to take even one day to go somewhere, or you're just gone for a long period for some reason, no one's topping off the tank. So I would definitely get some kind of automation. Now, there are all kinds of ways of doing it. You don't have to spend 180 lira or $180 or 180 pounds or whatever that symbol is. You could just use a container of water up high and hook up a bulkhead to it and run tubing to a float that's in your tank and let gravity add the water, and it costs you way less. It might be $30, $40 to completely create this thing from, getting the container, getting the bulkhead, getting the tubing, getting the float valve, and something to put it on, So all that could add up, but it's probably the cheapest option. But I remember there was a time, I did on my 280, I had one float switch, I think, in the sump, and it was hooked up to an aqua lifter, and I don't know what the other part was, the component. I have to look at my old blogs, but I used that for top off for a long time, and people said, that is crazy, that is so dangerous. Oh, I know what it was. I spliced an extension cord. That's what it was. So I had the 2 wires coming off the float switch going to one leg of the extension cord, and when the switch dropped, that would allow power to continue through it, and it would activate the aqua lifter, which would trickle the water into the sump. And I had it like that for years, and like I said, everyone said it's so dangerous, and yet nothing bad ever happened. But technically, they were right. So a company called DIYAutoTopOff.com, I think that was what it was called. Or maybe it was just AutoTopOff.com. They sold a DIY kit, and it was everything in the box for like 40, 50 bucks, I think it was. And it took you about 2 hours to build it. And you had solenoids, and you had like some kind of electrical bar with fuses, and you had this special space-age plastic that you put in boiling water, and it would make it malleable, so you could bend it over the edge of your sump to exactly what size you needed. You could cut it with scissors and create the little tabs for the float switches, and they had little jars that went around the switches that had holes drilled in them so water could get to the switch, but snails could not. And it was this whole convoluted thing, and I did a huge article about how I built mine on Reef Addicts years ago. And I felt way safer. I got away from my crazy 110 volt extension cord method, and used that for a long time. And then later, there was a product that came out from Auto Aqua that I liked a lot. And then Ice Cap came out with one that I liked. And then Auto Aqua came out with like a newer one, I think. And then I think I finally jumped from that to the ATK. And I've been with the ATK now for probably 4 years, maybe 5. And I'm still running the original ATK, the version 1, with the original PMUP, which is just pumps filled backwards. And I'm still running that as well. And it just does the job. So having automation, I understand about not liking to pay for something. Man, does it make your life easier. Desert Elephant says, "Hey Mark, what's your take on a 7-stage RODI system with separate cation and anion chambers?" I think that you'll have good water coming out of that. The cation, I believe I'm correct. I hope I don't have this backwards. The cation gets used up quicker than the anion, so you might even need double cation chambers and then a single anion, or vice versa. Whatever the one is that wears out, you want 2 of one and 1 of the other. But yeah, you could do that. Jeremy says, "I use Red Sea salt and recommends using it within 30 minutes. I believe Fritz says something the same, like you can use it within 20 minutes. I'm never in that much hurry. Oh, I'm seeing your comments now. So you guys like the white color, huh? Nice. I'm going to put the comments. Brian's Aquarium says the white color, which is 10K lighting, and then Eric says that the first color looks more natural. And then Nitrox likes the blue, and I should switch back and forth. Let's switch to blue for a second while I'm doing these comments. So Nitrox says blue. Todd says blue. Ruben says my microphone is still too low. Thank you very much for letting me know. I think I'm wearing the microphone a little bit too low today. I need to bring it up a little higher inside my shirt. Oh, thank you for catching that. Let me see this. God. Yep. Sorry about that. I thought I muted that one. You said background noise. You're right. I am so sorry about that. Dang it. Mark says, "I like when you drink on the live stream." Well, I've got some coffee. Put that right there. But yeah, sometimes I drink alcohol in here too. When I was doing the Reef Addicts podcast, we had a rule that you had to drink. We called it, drink a shot of Crown Royal, even though we didn't shoot it, we sipped it. Andrea says that the Flux RX does help with bryopsis. Thank you very much. Ruben says, "My demon has been Aptasia, and the more I nuke, the more babies pop up." Are you using F-Aptasia? Because that doesn't let you have babies pop up. It literally encases them completely, and then it burns them with acid, and then later on when you break away the white crumbly stuff, or the pink because it now comes in a color, there's no Aptasia there, and there's no babies. I killed one in Caitlin's reef in a reef diary. I think it was my last reef diary that I did, so you can go watch it. It's either the last one or the one right before it. And people are like, "Man, you use a lot." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm getting rid of the Aptasia." Now, the Aptasia was big, and so I wanted to completely make sure it didn't come back. And I haven't even removed the pancake of stuff that I made. It's still there, but there's no Aptasia either, because I think my pistol shrimp has been burrowing and created like an air pocket underneath my, like I call it, my pancake of this stuff. And there's no Aptasia. Normally you have one poking out, but there's not. Okay, so Nitrox says that L thing is a UK. Thank you very much. So it's got to be pounds. I thought pounds was written a different way for some reason. Mina says, "What is your take on the Apex Junior as a monitor? Are the probes reliable? Is the leak detector reliable? Is it worth the $300 tag price?" Yeah, I would say that it is. It is literally just monitoring, and I don't know for a fact if you can keep adding accessories to kind of make it a full-blown Apex. I think it's more like an entry-level Apex. Now, probes are going to be as reliable as they're kept clean and they're in the right location, but there's not a lot more that you can do with that. Okay, I turned the volume a little bit more. But the leak detector, yeah. I mean, if it gets wet underneath, it tells you. You get a notification. Yeah, it does what it's supposed to do. So I would say yes. I mean, I would recommend I don't know. The Junior is the cheapest choice, for sure. The other choice would be the Apex. I don't even think they have the EL anymore, which was called entry level. I think now it's just the A3. There's the Junior, the A3, and the A3 Pro. So, obviously the A3 is going to cost you a lot more. But you said you didn't need a lot of stuff, so monitoring would probably be perfect for you. Carl says, I've been experiencing very high pH. I've seen that trend for like the last year. It's really weird. Averaging around 8.5 and goes up to 8.7 in the afternoon. How concerned should I be about coral and fish health? The probe was calibrated this week. Well, my initial thought was calibrate it. But perhaps the water actually is that high. I have a hard time believing it's that high. I just don't believe it. Because notoriously, everyone struggles with low pH, and they're doing everything they can to bring it up. They're using Kalkwasser to bring it up. They are opening doors and windows. They're sucking in fresh air from outside into their protein skimmer. They're using CO2 absorbing media to lower the CO2, to bring up the pH. I just don't know how people are having these high pH numbers. I don't. Both my tanks tend to run 8.0 to 8.2, 8.1 to 8.3. I mean, those are the ranges of my two tanks. So I don't know why you're having such a high number, but normally in the past when my tank got to 8.5 and I had SPS corals, they start putting out all their mesenterial filaments were just coming out, and you could tell the coral was in stress mode, and all I could do was panic. At the time I didn't know what to do. I found out later you can dose white vinegar to bring it down. But I wonder if your number is telling you the truth in the first place, or if it's just a number. In other words, 8.5 to 8.7 versus 8.1 to 8.3. It's still a 0.2 change per day. That's 100% normal. So perhaps it's reading high and it's reading high incorrectly and the livestock's completely unaffected. Then I would just know 8.5 to 8.7 on my controller is the number. It's just not the right number for your brain. It's sort of like having something that's out of calibration and you just say, okay, it's still within the reasonable range of what's happening, but the number is not true to life. But I don't know that your tank could do well if it was really 8.7. I just don't think that's plausible. Triggerfish says, I used to do that extension cord and Aqualifter. You probably, yeah, because I would document it and people copied me. Did you do it first or did I do it first? I'm going to say I did it first. Brennan's Reef wants me to switch to the 10K. He says, my issue is that all, the corals with the blue light, they look better, but then all the fish colors are muted. So I prefer the 10K overall. Yeah. And the fish are pretty. Hey, by the way, if you look really closely, on the left side of the, almost the left side of the tank, you'll see an Anthias. Now it's swimming to the right side. That one is chasing another Anthias. Now, the reason I'm talking about this Anthias is because that is a lyre tail. It's going to the left again. It's a lyre tail that was orange and a female. And I had two females in the tank, if I remember correctly. No, I had a male and a female lyre tail, and I added a male and a female Bimaculatus last year. The Bimaculatus is beautiful. I'm shocked that there's not a nickname for this Anthias, and they don't call it the scribbled Anthias, because everything has a nickname. The blotched Anthias, the sunburst Anthias, lyre tail, that's another nickname. But Bimaculatus is the Latin, and they just shorten it. It's a Bimac. Anyway, point is, sometime last year I lost the male Anthias. I don't know if the Bimac, the male, attacked the other male and got rid of it. I don't know if it swam into the anemone. I don't know if it got eaten by a starfish. It didn't jump. It just didn't exist. And that's kind of sad because, when you add more fish, you want to have more population to kind of fill it in. You don't want to put in a new one to get rid of an old one, if that makes sense. And so anyway, I had the Bimac male with a Bimac female and a lyre-tail female. And the lyre-tail female is now turning into a male and has been chasing the Bimac female. So that fish, it's not purple yet, but it's transitioning and it's got the big dorsal spine coming up off of its dorsal fin, and it is clearly becoming a male. So I thought that was kind of neat. You can see all three of them together right now, and you can see the male's kind of courting the female, and the big Bimac is kind of ignoring all this activity, doesn't care at all. See, there's no squabbling, there's no No fighting, no male versus male aggression. They're all with each other. Kind of weird. Something else that happened this week that I didn't mention before I go to your next question, I got a couple of pipefish delivered on Monday. And that was, no, on Tuesday, because Monday was carpet day. And I don't want to get back on that. I just want to say that I'm glad it's all done and my house feels more complete than ever before. I've done a lot of work on this house from top to bottom, and getting that carpet replaced was a huge, huge obstacle. And so now I feel more relaxed in the house, which is nice. And I think taking the office out of the living room also adds to the relaxation. I like coming into this room and I can work at my desk and Jack will come visit me. And then, you know, I can just walk away from it. And the living room is just the TV and the tank and the sofa and my food. And it's just, it's so, so nice. I really enjoy that. And so on Tuesday, I went somewhere. And when I came home, there was a box that said live fish on the side. And I thought, what a nice thing to see when you come home. And I was very happy to get my 2 little pipefish. I bought them from New Wave Aquaria out of Michigan or Minnesota. I always get those 2 states mixed up. I'm never sure which one it is, but maybe Minnesota. And I ordered them last week. They arrived on Tuesday as requested. I put them through acclimation and safety stop, and I put them in the reef, and I can't find them because they're so tiny. They're super adorable, but they're so tiny. The principal reason for getting them was so that they could explore the reef and especially, you know, explore the SPS corals, and if they see things like red bugs, to eat them. Now, I don't think I have any red bugs in my tank, but maybe I'll get lucky and they'll eat acropora eating flatworms, maybe? Because I know those guys still exist in my reef. Brian says, thoughts on witch hazel and biodigest method for stopping and reducing STN on reef moonshiner, per reef moonshiners. I don't have an opinion on that. I've actually not done the witch hazel ever. Now, he continues, I recently tried it as a last-ditch effort to save one of my Acropora colonies. It seemed to work for me so far, but it's only been 10 days. I would say talk to Andre. I mean, this is literally his wheelhouse. He's all about the witch hazel and, of course, the reef moonshiners, and he would be your best person to give the advice. I know when he was first trying to figure it all out, he was doing a lot of testing in his own tank, and he, you know, would post, I crashed my reef again. And he kept posting that repeatedly, many times in the same year. Like 3-4 times, I crashed my reef, I crashed my reef. And I'm like, why do you keep doing this to your poor tank? And he just kind of laughed, said, it's okay, and I'm just figuring stuff out. And I'm just like, man, you could have such a beautiful reef by now. I mean, he had a fantastic aquarium that he ordered custom, and yet, you know, he was dealing with losses. So, if anyone knows anything about witch hazel, that would be Andre. Milton says, what would get rid of blue-purple clove polyps? The little tiny ones that look like little flowers? Those are, you could do some peeling. You could do the thing where you mix the 2-part putty and you cover it to smother them and, you know, keep them away from light and air and water. And it just kind of just encase them. And then after a few weeks, peel it away and they'll be gone. That is a couple of methods that can work. There's probably something out there that consumes them, but I don't know what that is. It's one of the things I would not put in my tank. Bob says, is there a good fish for pest control in a 20-gallon that's not a jerk? If so, would they go after shrimp and snails? I've heard maybe a Springerei damsel. The Springerei damsel is sort of aggressive. Not a big fan. What are the pests you're trying to get rid of? That's the question. It's a 20-gallon tank. It shouldn't be too hard to resolve whatever's going on in your tank. It could be you need to siphon out the pest. It could be there is a natural predator, but like you said, you know, you didn't say what the pest is. So let's find out what that is first before I can go further. Oh, Reef Keeper corrected me. You can turn the Apex Junior into a full-blown Apex. The only thing you won't have is an Ethernet port. It's just going to be only Wi-Fi. Thank you. I'm sorry I didn't know that. I thought for some reason that was kind of like, try this out, but then, you know, you're probably going to want to upgrade. Wow. Eric says, I'm using the Apex Junior A3 with a Trident, with the EB832, the PM2 module, the dose. Yeah, okay. I was wrong. Thank you, guys. I appreciate that. You know, with me, I just jump to the Pro and I don't look back at the lesser kits because I always know I need a bunch of stuff. Chris says, how do I stop my tank from smelling? I change my water and clean the skimmer every week, but I still get a bit of smell. I run carbon in my sump with my reef mat. Actually, what you can do is you could put carbon in a reactor, and you need a half a cup per 50 gallons, and just let that run for 2 or 3 days, and the smell should lessen. Also, look at everything around your tank, top to bottom, and see if there's anything that's just kind of rotting. I used to actually clean my skimmer daily. Not the whole thing, but I would take off the collection cup and clean the neck with a paper towel and clean the cup every day, and that eliminated that smell. I like to wipe around the top of the tank where there's any kind of stuff that is, you know, salt creep and moisture and algae growth. Those are all things that kind of have an odor to them. Wiping all that stuff down with a sponge and get it really clean will help eliminate it. The fresh carbon in the tank's system in a reactor, not just in a pouch sitting in the corner of the sump, that will make a big difference, and I think you'll notice it. And then lastly, you can light a candle. And then Triggerfish says, hey, wait a minute, why no reef diarrhea on the new fish? Well, because I was doing carpet and working on the house ever since. But I do have some stuff. So I will look into changing that out to, you know, getting that stuff edited. I have so many things to edit. The list never ends. EIY, Kumar says, your light is so white right now. Here we go. We'll switch it. How about now? Mickey's Journey says, my nitrates are 0, my phosphate is 0.01, and as of 5 days ago, and my rocks are lightly covered, about 50% in light brown, almost clear algae. What should I do? It sounds to me like you might be heading into dinoflagellate zone. If you're dosing carbon, like vinegar or vodka or something like that, that can create a clear gel-like algae in the tank or some weird white, smoky, wispy looking stuff in the tank, which can coat some rocks. Even if another time that can happen is like you took brand new rock and you put it in vinegar to clean it before you put it in the aquarium and the vinegar remained, and it creates a weird bacterial bloom. So we need to know exactly what you have. What I would suggest you do is go ahead and post in Club Milo's Reef, and that way we can see what it is and we can give you advice, because right now you're just describing things. I would think maybe you need a cleanup crew. I would think maybe you need more flow. I think maybe your lights run too long. I mean, there's so many potential possible things going on. Your nitrate and phosphate are too low. We know that for a fact. They should be higher. And you can dose neonitro, you can dose neophos if you want to bring those numbers up, because you do not want to have to fight dinoflagellates. It's just not good. George says, I think Mark keeps his tank so clean so he can handle white light. White light is not evil. It's a good thing. And usually, or I'm sorry, in the past, people had white light tanks all day long and they had blue for a couple hours at night. And now everyone's doing blue, and there's people posting that white is for your eyes and blue is what the corals need. And it's not, that's not true. That is taking some content out of context and then spreading it like gospel, and it's a problem. So your tank can look beautiful with blue light. It can look beautiful with white light. It comes down to the personal taste. But if you're wanting to see glowing corals, yeah, you do blue. But if you want corals to grow quickly, you need white. And white light is not just going to create algae. And blue light still allows algae to grow. You just don't notice it because it's hidden in the blue. And as soon as you turn on the white lights, you can suddenly see all the algae everywhere. Like, oh, okay. I know people have posted, like, what is this black stuff in my tank? And as soon as you turn the lights to white, it's like, oh, it's red cyano. It's not black, it's red. So the color spectrum can actually trick you. So it's good to have good, clean, white light in your tank from time to time. My system tends to have a little bit of a period, about an hour and a half a day, where it really leans into the whites. And then the rest of it's kind of blue. I've kind of joined the blue crew, but I do like that my tank is not one color all day long. And I remember someone that loves and collects corals like crazy. I went to visit his house, and he was a big, I mean, he bought the high-end corals, and he, you know, when I went to see his tank, he had like 1,000 different corals in there. They were all so tiny and really pretty. Each one was a gem. It was like seeing 1,000 diamonds, okay, inside an aquarium. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. You have like one of everything out there. And he was like, yeah. And then one day he came to my house and he saw my tank and he said, I have never seen such big corals in my life. And I was like, what are you talking about? They're not that big. And he's like, these are unbelievable. And I was thinking, well, I'm not fragging my corals like you are. So that's the different approaches of the hobby. He loved getting brand new things that just, you know, back then Walt Disney was the thing to have. Nowadays, home wrecker is the thing to have, you know. There's just certain, you know, corals that, of course, little ones always look fantastic when they're in their smallest state because they're filled with power, they're filled with color, they are just bursting with growth, they want to grow. But because his tank was blue all the time, they were super slow growers. So his diamonds stayed diamonds instead of becoming blah colonies like I have. Hillbilly Reefer says, it looks like it's time to do some pruning in your tank. Yeah, I'm going to have to do it. I don't want to, but I might have to. And then Mickey's Journey says, I also saw my Acra seem to be STNing. STNing can happen when you have so much coral that the light can't penetrate the body and so the bottom part turns white, or it could be an alkalinity swing because unfortunately that happens and then the tissue at the bottom that's getting the least amount of light, the least amount of flow, that's going to be the first part to turn white. Even the bottom of my colonies have some little white areas and it's like, there's nothing I can do about it besides literally break out the colony, cut off the white and lower it back into the tank, which is super difficult to pull off you know, successfully, and even harder to like glue into place once you've done this weird lopping off the trunk part of the coral. Rather Be Traveling says, should I worry about pineapple sponges? I have an outbreak of them in the sump. Nope, they're just filter feeders. They don't do any harm at all. EIY says, what does that stand for? Do some corals grow under white light we use for our rooms? The polyps of my zoas, the zinnia open up when my room lights are on. They can. I mean, those are low light corals, they're softies, and they just any kind of light. I used to have this floodlight bulb that I got at Home Depot. It was like $10 or $11. It was 5100 Kelvin. So it was a yellow white. And I used it as a refugium bulb, and it grew Chaetomorpha and Caulerpa like crazy. And there was this one guy who told me he was using that bulb in a small section of a sump, and he had rose bubble tip anemones completely living under this $11 light bulb. And I was so impressed because I didn't think it would do anything more than grow plants. But he showed how, you know, something else could live under it. It all comes down to how big the body of water is, because the light has to penetrate through that water. So if it's a small little shallow area, you know, 9 inches deep with some anemones, and you have this light right above it, they can live, even though it's not the high intensity LEDs, the metal halides, the T5s, you know, all the other kind of lights that exist. But yeah, your soft corals could be opening up from sunlight. They could be opening up from the light in your room. And of course, they'll operate from the light you have over your tank. If your tank is only blue, then, you know, you might want to get a light fixture that allows you to pick colors, you know, where you can add some white in there. It wouldn't hurt to have some in there because your corals seem to like it. Eric says, if you change your spectrum but match your par, will the corals react negatively? So, for example, if you were to use AB plus with a little more white, they're not going to act more or negatively. Now, I'll tell you this, when you add more white, your par is going to go up. And when I was running metal halides before the LED fixtures, I used to have 250 watt 10K bulbs on each end of the tank. And in the middle, I had a 400 watt 20K bulb because the 20K light has a less par. So by having 250 watt, let's just use numbers. Under the 250 watt bulb that was white light, I had 300 par. If I had a 250 watt 20K bulb in the middle, I might have had 180 par. But by going to 400 watts, it was more like 300 par. And then the other 250 watt. And what ended up happening is it looked correct. It just, the tank kind of looked like the sun was shining down in the middle, which sounds crazy because that was the blue bulb. But I had the white, blue in the center, and just did this beam of blue, and it kind of just looked like the sun was hitting the middle, and the tank did great. And the par was kind of equalized because I had more intensity on the blue because of the additional wattage. The extra 150 watts made a big difference. And I ran the tank like that for like 8 years, maybe longer, and never regretted it. But then later on, I learned about the Reef Bright bulbs, where it's one glass bulb, and inside are two, I forget what they call that part. I don't think that's the arc. Yeah, twin arcs. The arc inside, the arc bulb inside the sleeve, and one was 10K and one was 20K. And so every day I had the lights turn on, and it would be 10K for about, I think it was 3.5 hours. And then after 3.5 hours, I would have the lights turn off for 1 minute and turn back on. And because that arc was still hot, it wouldn't turn on again. That's what metal halides did. If you turned off metal halides, or if you had a blip in electricity, you would have to wait for, the ballast would wait. The bulb had to cool off enough to reignite. And, but with the twin arcs, because that bulb was hot, it couldn't ignite, so the 20K would turn on. And so for the next 4 hours of my afternoon, afternoon and evening, my tank was in the blue spectrum with 20K lighting. And I ran that for about 10 years. So I'm a big fan of using white light and blue light and using it at different times of the day. And my current schedule has been the same now for 2 years. I'm using the Neptune Sky. I installed those in May of 2021. And that color spectrum, you can download it if you're using Neptune. The Apex and the Sky, you can pull down the Milev schedule and you can try it out. And you can see, and you'll see it's a bell curve of lighting. And you'll also see the color shift throughout the day and then go back to the blues late at night. But any change you make in your tank, some corals may react differently, but it's not going to be like they all just committed suicide. It's nothing sudden like that. You might see some things are closed up, but after 2 or 3 days, you might see it just suddenly look better. So don't sweat it. You know, just try it out, see what you think. If it's too much, you can always decrease it. You can also look at the total period of light. I mean, the thing about lighting, this is one of those topics you can go on and talk about for hours and hours, and there's lots of debate, and there's lots of information, and there's some misinformation too. But the thing that I feel like most people make the mistake with is they run their lights super long. They're running them 12 hours a day, and they're basically going up for like 30 minutes, and then they just go for 11 hours real high, and then they drop off for 30 minutes. And where mine might start at 11:30 in the morning, and there's a little bit of light, and then for the next hour or so, my lights are only like 23%, and then they work their way up to like 54%, and then finally they're 80% for 3 hours, and then they taper back down again. Now, I read recently, Mike Paletta did a post on Facebook about Sanjay's tank, and he runs Radions, and he runs them 100% all day long, like 9 hours straight. 9 hours, 100%. Like, wow, I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. And he grows beautiful corals. So there's lots of different ways of doing stuff. Hi, Jason. George Carr says, do you have a hermit crab? I'm sure there are quite a few in my reef. Manjo says, white lights help me catch an issue before it becomes an issue, and blue lights just hide everything. And that's true. Oh, okay. Bob says, there's no active pests. I'm just looking to build up my fish stocking and seeing if there's anything that will take care of general pests. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure philosophy. 20-gallon tank. There are certain things you can put in there that kind of just do stuff. Peppermint shrimp like to eat pests. Arrow crabs and coral-banded shrimp are also known bristleworm eaters. Pipefish can eat little bugs. So those are a few off the top of my head. Of course, just the snails and the bumblebee snails for vermitids, the trocha snails to clean the glass, stomatella to graze on the rock, sereth snails to work on the area of the glass near the sand bed, Nassarius snails in the sand bed, sand conchs and serpent starfish to kind of work the sand itself. I mean, it's just lots of stuff like that. But you could see a coral-banded shrimp could kill a cleaner shrimp, or it could kill a fish. And you might see it holding half and half of a fish in 2 claws. So you have to decide what's best. Greg says, what's the best way to restart after losing a tank to Velvet? The cleanup crew survived. I'm so sorry to hear that, Greg. You have to leave the tank fallow or fishless for a long time, and I don't know the duration. I'm gonna think it's something like 72 days. It's a long time. But you definitely want to make sure it's completely gone before you introduce new fish in there. And it might be a good time while the tank is fishless to go ahead and run UV on there too, to process all the water in the system and catch any free floaters. But you could go to humble.fish, which is the website, and read all up about Velvet and how to handle the tank, and they'll even give you advice. So I would go there and ask them. Humble.fish, and then hit enter. Hey, Pam. She waved. Michael says, does a blonde Nasso have to grow into their color? Mine is small and doesn't have the yellow on her tail, doesn't have it on her head, and her lips aren't as colored as yours. The blonde Nasso is one kind of tang. There's also the lipstick tang, and there's another one, and I, for the longest time, thought mine was a blonde, and someone corrected me and said, nope, you have the wrong tang. And I said, but if you type it into Google, and they said, Google has it wrong too. And the more I dug, I was like, oh, they really do. So there are Nasso tangs with yellow on the dorsal area and near the tail, and there are others that are black on the top. And that's kind of the case with mine. I was trying to see if I see Spock right now. She must be hiding in the back of the tank. Oh, there she is on the far right. But yeah, she is. I was told she was a blonde Nasso, and it turns out I was wrong for the longest time. It's funny when you have a pet for so long, and then someone tells you, nope, that's not what it is. And you're thinking, but I should know this. I've had this animal for 10 years, 20 years, you know. Let's see. Squid Missile says, I've been using Chris Meckley's method for Kalkwasser. The BioCube 32 mixed reef. The pH is rock solid at 8.2 to 8.3. Checked alkalinity last night, and it's up to 18.2, and everything's great. That's crazy. Rob, thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate that. That was nice of you. I'm going to use that to buy some fish food and some bananas. Flyfisher says, I'm running the Kessel APX9X lights at 40%, and I have nice colors with the orange glasses. If I don't wear the glasses, not so much. The orange glasses will melt the credit card in your pocket, so use those cautiously. I have because I go to so many Aquashella events, I have a shoebox filled with orange glasses, and when people come over, they're just looking at the tank, they're enjoying it, they say, yeah, it's pretty, it's nice, I like it. And then I said, now try on these orange glasses. I'm like, oh my God. And I'm like, wow. And I always laugh because I know it looks super fake, but it's like fake in a good way, if that makes sense. And when I went to visit someone in Florida years ago, Matt Dudley has this fantastic tank, and it's got like, I don't know, 100 Anthias in it. It's just beautiful. But he makes everything in the room pitch dark. He closes all the blackout curtains, closes the door, closes everything. And then he makes everyone put on the orange glasses, and you're required to wear them. And this reef looks fantastic. And, you know, you take them off and you look and you're like, yeah, it looks better with the glasses, you know? So I hear you. But there is a way to find a decent spectrum that you'll like to look at your tank without the orange glasses. The orange glasses are just for fun, but that shouldn't be your go-to of how you look at your tank. You'll just have to kind of play with it. And it could be that when you go from 40% to maybe 80%, you might say, wow, the tank actually looks really nice without glasses. So you'll have to figure out what works for you and is working well for the corals and doesn't overdo it. Now, I wouldn't just say go to 80 and leave it at 80 from now on forward, but you could try different intensities and just enjoy the tank and, you know, for the afternoon, you're figuring things out. And then when you know, then you can basically do an acclimation of changing the lighting to that choice, that intensity over a period of weeks or months and work your way up so that the livestock can just adapt and get used to it. And then he said, what percent would you raise the light intensity over a period of time? You could go up 10 or 20% over a 2 week, and it just comes down to how you're doing it. But let's say we're doing 10% a week, and you're going from 40 to 80, so technically in 4 weeks you'd be there. That seems kind of fast for such a big jump. I might do 10% increase and go 2 weeks, and then 10% 2 weeks, 10% 2 weeks, and 10%. So that's 2 months, and then you went from 40 all the way to 80, and you'll love it. But you have to know where your target is too, instead of just randomly changing numbers. Hi, Diacanthus Reef. CB's Reef says, how old is your tongue coral and how big? It's bigger than my foot, and I've had it for more than a decade. George says, as far as I'm concerned, he's a blonde Nasso. And Jason says, Spock's roots are showing. It's so funny. Squid Missile says, do clams move around much? One of their, what? Oh, on their own. Mine opened up right away, and the next day it was on its side. And I set it up, and the snail knocked it over. It's 45 degrees. Yeah, clams can be kind of silly. A really nice trick that I do with clams that I don't talk about much. When you're buying a clam at the fish store, ask them if they have any dead clams, if they have any clam shells. And if they do, get the shell and put your new clam in the shell and then put it where you want in the tank. Because the clam will grab onto the shell of the former clam like a cradle and it'll hold on. And that way you can put it anywhere in the tank and it always feels secure because it's holding on. But you could say, I like it better here or I like it over here. And for example, if you put it down on the sand and it's got that shell, any worms in the sand will not be able to come through the shell. They would have to literally climb over the edge of the shell and get inside to attack the clam from below. So it's kind of a safety measure to use a clam shell to protect a clam. Now clams will move. I mean, they literally have a foot and they can drag themselves. They can use water propulsion to jet themselves through the tank. Scallops do it even faster. And so it may decide it doesn't like the spot you picked and will pick a different one. And that's kind of, you know, you're dealing with animals. It's not Legos. You can't just snap it into one spot and say that's your spot. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. I know some people like to have them up high because they hear they live in and they bore into rock, but they just jump off like they're committing suicide and they're down to the bottom again. So all you want to do is make sure it's in a spot where you can get good light, but you know, it's not necessarily something you can keep in a certain spot forever. Things are going to move around. They just do. Just like anemones. They just suddenly change their mind and want to move. Bob says, what is the fish hovering over the hammers? That could be the Bimaculatus anthias. It could have been the cleaner wrasse that went by. Yeah, I know. I wasn't looking right when you typed that. I'm so sorry. There's a coal tang there with a white tail. And there's a skunk clownfish above it right now. We can just wait forever and just everything will be over there at one point. There's a coral beauty right there. There's a pajama cardinal to the right. No one's mentioned my beautiful elegance down there in that valley between the hammer and the anemones. So that elegance is super, super gorgeous. CB's Reef says, when do you think you'll be putting up the anemone tank? Should be happening the next few weeks because the tank is now in the kitchen where it belongs, just on the floor. So I got to build the stand. Yeah, so a giant cardinal fish. That would be the pajama cardinal. I've got these, I had 5 forever. I lost 1. I thought, oh, maybe they have like a 5-year lifespan. And then another one died. I said, yeah, clearly they have a 5-year lifespan. But the other 3 are completely fine. And that was like 9 months ago. So I don't know why I lost a couple, but I still have 3 in the tank. How are we doing on time? Oh, we've been talking for a whole hour? You know what we could do? We could stop so I could keep working on this room. I mean, I really did enjoy doing the live stream with you guys today. I know it wasn't the room you were wanting me to be in, but at the same time, I'm sore all over from moving and moving and moving stuff. And I'm still moving stuff, but it's coming together nicely, and I'm very excited about that. So what's going to change in this room, number 1, I'm going to grab a green screen. I might change the chair because this big back is behind me. I don't like that. I want to get some blackout curtains to go in front of the window that's in front of me. Right now I got the window and I got a light right here. And what I'd like to do is put the blackout curtains because that will get rid of the echo that I feel is happening. I also will work on the volume. I will make sure the microphone is up a little bit higher than where I put it inside my shirt. I messed up today. But I think everything will be really well. It will go really well in the future. This will be a nice area for me to set up and do streams where I can use green screen and show you video of the tank. Occasionally we'll go out there, but I think I should just shoot video of the tank and walk around it and get some good angles and stuff for just regular videos and not live streams. And just kind of make the live streams as comfortable as possible for me because I do them every single week. And that way we get the best of all the worlds, not the best of both worlds, but all the worlds. And hopefully you guys will continue to tune in and enjoy the show. Larry says, do you have an updated photo on the orange crush coral? Is that a Montipora? I don't remember which one that is. Or is it, I don't know which one that is. Triggerfish says, when everything's done, we need an episode of MTV Cribs. You know, I wouldn't mind doing a walkthrough through most of the house when it's all done, but I still have some more work. I've got a couple bedrooms to paint. I got baseboard to put in everywhere. I've got to do all the ceilings in the house, but we're getting there. It's getting done. I'm very excited. All right, guys. I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend and have a happy Easter if that is what you're celebrating. And if you're not, steal someone's chocolate anyway because chocolate is always good no matter what the holiday is. And I hope that you guys have a great, I hope things go really well with your tanks too. I'll see you guys online. Bye.